Welcome everyone to another episode of Price Targets with your host Bitcoin Jack. It's Sunday and we're going to be reviewing Bitcoin. Going to have a look at ETH as usual. We're going to start off with your attention for eClass. They're sponsoring this content, and if you appreciate these videos every week, please go check out the link in the description below, and you can see it in the watermark too. So Bitcoin, you may have caught my slight, not really, well, let's say conservative stance towards Bitcoin's price action ever since we tested 60k, sold off back into the gray box here, bounced back into it, and I was hoping for this region to kind of hold, make a higher low, breach it, and then have a rally. And I mean, you can say it's weakened price action, etc., but price has been rejected again, and back into the 3-day close support. It's not necessarily bearish, it's not necessarily bullish, but my reasoning here, and maybe my reasoning is entirely wrong, is the fact that we've been losing momentum. We had a breakout on poor volume. There's not a lot of volume right here. And what I wanted to see after we kind of dip back into the range is a push back and then make new highs. And so initially, kind of the right thesis right here when we broke up here on the news of the Fed, promising people that the markets were going to be fine, etc. And now it's been rejected twice right there at resistance. It just doesn't give me a lot of confidence. This throwback is fine, but I would to really believe in it. I wanted to see some conviction right there. The other thing that I'm looking at, and may or may not be significant, is the fact that we've lost this trend line on the linear scale, and it's been lost on the log scale too. So I'm just seeing a lot of signs we're back inside this high. I'm just seeing a lot of signs where I think it's very possible for Bitcoin to retrace a lot deeper. And let me just grab a bit of a clean chart. Grab the daily. I don't mind a little throwback, but generally when Bitcoin breaks out, you'll not see much of a throwback, right? So like that. You could argue this was a breakout and then it just, went sideways. But this probably needed more time to digest after all this, this entire rally. And here, it just usually doesn't really like to breathe post breakout. There's a throwback here, obviously. But yeah, point here being that it's just a little bit weak. We're below the daily. Obviously, this daily hasn't closed, but it just doesn't show a lot of strength. So where does that put us? If I'm not, let's say neutral to bearish. I'm bullish above here, but I question whether, I'll be, I don't know. I'm bullish above there, but it kind of makes sense for price now to, and I'll jump back to the other chart in a little bit. It's at support here at this trend line, and then the smaller one right here, kind of last. You see, both on the log scale and on. I mean, on the linear scale, it's kind of trying not to, but the point is, this just doesn't give me confidence. Back inside the range, deviation, yada yada yada. So range high, previous range high. Let's assume this is a deviation. Then I'd argue that our range low is somewhere around there, or perhaps around here. And both have been untested. So it wouldn't surprise me for price to come back down all the way here. But the most important portion of price action is probably around 50. And I'll show you on the other chart. We're going to go back to the other chart. But there's this kind of deviation here too. Fake out, back below, hasn't been tested. So this is our first point of interest, around 51k, maybe slightly lower. Let's see. All right, so back to this chart. We lost this diagonal right here on the 4 hour, and it's being retested right now. We could probably come back up, maybe retest like the, fill the CME gap as we open up. Maybe it's not even going to happen. Maybe it's just going to leave it behind for a while. And we're at the 3-day support, the 3-day close here. This is my main area of interest to be tested as we come down. And as you can see, there's another trend line here. So I'm just not too confident this is going to hold. And then there's a bunch of levels untested down here, which is pretty deep. It's a 38 level, 40k. And then this is arguably the range low right here. And then this is the deviation, as we see the deviation up here too. I'm not, yeah. Where am I wrong? It's probably a good question. And I'd say that's above here, above previous all-time high. But this looks like a little impulse. This could be C wave, so then you have A, B, C. It's pretty tiny, pretty small. Hasn't shown a lot of strength here, so it kind of looks like it's part of a bigger corrective structures. And this is kind of impulsive. This looks not impulsive. So then we need another leg at least for A, B, C. And if it needs to be a full C, right? So if this is like A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C, D, E, then it could be, we could come down all the way down here. I think there's going to be a lot of interest around this area. But if it nukes through it, I'm pretty sure we're going to rate these lows, or at least test the range low right here, all the way possibly to 43, maybe even lower. And this does sound very bearish, and maybe it is. Like, let's look at it in a different way, right? So here's a price model, and it's on a log scale. This line right here is based on recent price action combined with on-chain volume. So it kind of describes us. It's a moving average, but more lean towards what's happening on-chain to give it any weight, right? So it's a volume weighted average for whatever is going on on-chain. Every time we touched it, right here, we had a reaction, came down, another reaction, and it just starting to hug it. Okay, this entire structure right here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. There's 4 touches, so you never trust the fourth. I'm not gonna be. I cannot be bullish here until my invalidation hits. I wish I could, but I just have to follow my guidelines, my rules that I've made up for myself. So, where does that put us? We have the 51 level right here, according to the price model, which is a level of interest, has been support previously. If we test that and break through it, the next level of support is going to be at 43. And if that's going to be a massive like liquidation nuke, it probably could jump lower and then back up. So I'm just going to be cautious, play this very slowly, wait until either my invalidation hits above the previous highs, and probably hedge at bounces. So where do we hedge, right? It's probably a nice area to hedge around here, around this trend line on this retest, if it actually does get there. And it's also, let's see, zoom in a little bit. .618 is around the previous all-time high. So there's a lot of confluence at this particular level. Could go slightly higher, could be lower, could get rejected on this bearish retest right here. Probably trap a little bit of people and then come down. If it doesn't, you know, like if it comes back all the way up here, that would have me kind of revise my thesis. You know, I'm absolutely wrong above when we make new all-time highs, but if price can manage to come back up to 60k again, that level is going to be particularly weak. Supply is probably not going to hold up. It probably is going to get rejected once more and then move into trend to the upside, right? ETH BTC still remains in the same kind of weird position. Go to the daily. It's still at the same place. If BTC is going to be a little bitch and is going to sell off, maybe the ratio is going to hold up, maybe it's going to sell off, but you know, ideally we trade ETH BTC or ETH in general when BTC has strength, or the ETH BTC pair shows that it's probably going to outperform, and it's better to be in ETH than in, for example, USD. I'm not sure how often that is the case. Maybe that was the case in 2017, 2018 when we hit the top. Probably not really the case this time. I mean, we can look at a few other things. The S&P 500 doesn't look too bad, but again, swept the highs back below it, so not necessarily super bullish, not necessarily super bearish yet. But at the end of this month, the SLR is going to be no longer in place, the adjustments to the SLR, and this means that the ratio at which banks can leverage themselves changes, which means they have to reduce their leverage in the market, which could potentially cause for a sell-off. Maybe they've already priced that in, maybe it's still going to get priced in. I'm not really sure. Oil had a pretty large sell-off, probably one of the largest sell-offs since earlier in 2020. If that is going to continue, it's probably also not the best sign for markets. Oil could be indicative of expectations around economic activity and reopening. and obviously there is supply and demand for production, etc., etc. But if this sell-off is caused by a lack of confidence in the speed at which we'll reopen, maybe that's going to wreak some havoc across all markets as well. So I don't know. Bitcoin has been looking. I had faith, kind of lost my faith a little bit. Not massive conviction here, and can't really change that. This looks like a break of the channel of this move right here. Looks like it wants to come deeper, at least to 50,000 ish, 51, 50,000, and potentially I could see a lot more darkness. We're gonna have to reevaluate that as price develops, and I don't know. Keeps, like you have to take things slow right now. If this starts to come down, moving down, it could actually start moving as fast as this correction right here. So I'd rather be safe than sorry, and survive to long Bitcoin another day. I hope that makes sense, and I'll see you on Wednesday. Ciao.